welcome out. Here we are. This is the Bill of Rights. We're going to be taking a look at the first 10 amendments. We looked at the Constitution, the 7 articles. We looked at the Federalist Papers pretty extensively, pretty exhaustively, the summaries and analysis. And now we're moving into the amendments. So here we are. Goals for the class. What is the Bill of Rights and why did the framers think it was necessary? Some of these we've gone over a little bit already through the Federalist Papers. Where did the idea of the Bill of Rights emerge from? What rights are in the Bill of Rights? Those rights and not others. Why those rights and not others? What was the role of the anti-federalists, those who opposed the Constitution in making the Bill of Rights? After the founding generation, how did the Bill of Rights change over time? So that's the key, change over time. And I have to reemphasize, there's usually people who want to do away with, I heard recently, of course, after the election, the Electoral College, especially if you lose, things, if you win, then everything's going fine, right? But if you lose, you're always trying to find ways out of it, right? Or excuses, or setting up things so that you have a better chance of winning in the future. Anyways, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, everything changed over time. And now that we've gone over the Constitution and we've looked at the various parts, we've looked at the 3 branches of government, and we've seen in the Federalist Papers that there wasn't much discussion about Congress. You had the basic layout, schematics, which was gone over for the House and for the Senate. The only real discussion or detail issues, problems that were brought up was in the executive or need for strong executive. It didn't just say executive, right? It said, talked about a need for a strong executive. And again, I'm threatening to go over that in a little more detail in the future. I don't know if I'll be doing it right away, but when I have time. Anyways, so there's your questions. What's the big idea? With the Bill of Rights, the founding generation wrote some of our nation's most cherished liberties, freedom of speech, religion, and due process, into the Constitution. As originally crafted, the Bill of Rights protected Americans from abuses by the national government. However, with the ratification of the 14th Amendment and later decisions by the Supreme Court, the Bill of Rights is now truly a national charter of freedom, applying to abuses by both the national government and the states. We'll discuss a few major figures. Individuals: Alexander Hamilton, you're familiar with him. James Wilson, the only one that I know, I think he's the only one to sign the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I may be wrong. Again, I'm not a scholar. James Madison, very well-known and influential founding father, and George Mason as well. Right. Original Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. We know that, right? First Amendment: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. All right. So there are a couple of things. As far as religion is concerned, what the issue was for the founding fathers when they were under British rule is having a state religion, right? Or a religion that was associated with the government, like the Church of England, right? That was to be done away with. You could have churches, sure, but you couldn't have a state church or a church that was of the federal government, or something along those lines. So that's what they were looking for. And you were free to practice any religion as long as you were not infringing upon the rights of others in any way, especially in heinous ways. freedom of speech, what does that mean? People think that you're free to say anything. Well, you can, but you're also free to receive the consequences. If there's certain things that you can say that will get you into trouble, that will get you fined, that may even lead to imprisonment. So, and is there a freedom of speech? Today, there's an issue with social media, uh, locking down on some freedom of speech. There are certain things that you can't say on Facebook or YouTube or other social media, Instagram and so forth, right? Without getting blocked or something. So you can't just say anything, right? But those are public platforms, and they're free. So whoever's running those free public platforms does have, within reason, the right to limit your speech, especially if it's abusive or excessive. But sometimes I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, sometimes where you'll post something totally innocuous, right? There's no way in the world that it could be offensive to anybody, and it gets flagged. So, the the restrictions on there, or the programs, the algorithms that run those websites, not always functioning properly. Right of the people to peacefully assemble. That's what the before the revolution, and that was one of the grievances, that the colonists were often forced to assemble in distant and uncomfortable places when they wanted to assemble and discuss things, political or whatever. Petition the government for redress of grievances. All right, so that's in there. 2, Second Amendment. This is a big hot button issue. A well-regulated militia, but being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So this, of course, initially was about allowing the people access to weapons. And again, those weapons are looked to be restricted somewhat. If you had a Gatling gun, I don't know about that, or a cannon, some of these things. Although I think you can have cannons in some states. I don't know. You have to check it out. Yeah, so there certainly are restrictions. Can you own a tank? Can you own a military jet, in your backyard and fly around and attack your neighbors? Of course, there's restrictions. Well, if you have that money, I guess. So there are restrictions, but the issue here is people say, well, you're going to use guns to protect yourself against the government, when the government has the 4 branches of military, and they have tanks and jets and planes, fighter planes, and right. That's really not the point. The point is that those guns are for self-protection. If somebody breaks onto your property, somebody breaks into your house at night, that would be the issue. And as far as breaking down insurrections and attacking the people is concerned, if it gets too out of hand, and we've seen some minor rebellions, and you can read about those in your history books, like Shays Rebellion. There's some minor rebellions that have occurred throughout history that have been somewhat contentious and challenging to put down. But overall, the entire nation has not armed itself and gone up against the government like it did in the American Revolution. And back then it was different. You just had handguns and rifles pictured here, right? Maybe had some cannons, but the military wasn't as equipped as it is now to do some serious damage through rockets and tanks and jets and so forth, right? So, but that's a whole issue in itself. The Second Amendment. Maybe it's something. Maybe I should go through the first two are the big ones, the First and Second Amendment. After that, it's pretty much you'll see here Third Amendment, right? Some of these are moot, no longer points that are applicable, I should say. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in the manner to be prescribed by law. So I don't know of any incident where a member of the military has been quartered in somebody's house since the American Revolution. So that's kind of a moot point at this point. Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons. So this is one that we heard of before. And now we start to get into amendments that are related to your rights as a citizen upon arrest or before arrest, right? So most of these, I say to most of my students, unless you're a criminal, you're probably not familiar with many, if any of these, right? The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrant shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, right? So you need, if somebody comes to your house, if a police officer or whoever comes to your house, an official comes to your house and says, we're going to search your house, they need a warrant, right? They need probable cause. They need a warrant that has been signed by the courts, right? It says here, supposed by or by oath of affirmation, affirmed, right? So that protects you to a great degree. Is it perfect protection? No. Have infringements upon people's rights in these regards been made? Yes, but then you've got the courts to settle things, right? That's why you got the courts. That's why you got the three branches. Fifth Amendment. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, not famous, but infamous crime, unless on a presentment of or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. So in times of war, there's obviously a major difference, such as the Civil War, specifically war here in the United States, right? Where wars have been, we had the American Revolution was fought here, War of 1812 was fought here, the Civil War was fought here. So there were wars that were fought in the United States, but most of the wars that we know of have been fought outside of the United States, right? Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, self-incrimination, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property. See, there's the property. John Locke was the original purveyor of that philosophy or that statement, right? Americans have the right, well, he didn't say Americans, but people have the right to life, liberty, and property. And that was modified by Madison to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? Without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So, so again, it's protecting the individual against superficial arrest. The government can't just, that person annoys us or they're in opposition. I don't like what they're saying about our government. They verbally oppose us. Let's just arrest them or harass them. So the Fifth Amendment inhibits that from occurring, right? So no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. Infamous, what does that mean? Unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. So once again, the law has to be involved, right? And here's a grand jury, proper jurisprudence. You have to go through the process, and there has to be an indictment where there's a preponderance of evidence and a court of law proving to the greatest degree that there is guilt. There's habeas corpus. Bring the body here. Here's the paperwork. We went through all the proper legal procedures. This is not just a knee-jerk reflex reaction. We went through considerable thought and time and effort, according to the law of the land, to make this arrest, right? Rising in the land, except in cases. So when it's the military, it's a little different. And during Civil War, there was some major issues with Lincoln and what he did, and it was a time of war. So things weren't going as swimmingly as normal when there's no war or peace in the land, right? So Lincoln stepped it up and he made some arrests that people to this day think were not justified or were not just, right? Again, not an expert. If you want to know more about that, you can look it up. This is not the occasion for such deep discussion. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offenses to be twice put in jeopardy. Double jeopardy, right? Have you watched Jeopardy, the show Double Jeopardy? That's where double jeopardy comes from, right? If you want to know. So I don't know why you would be subject to the same offense twice. Well, I don't know if you committed the same offense twice, but I'm guessing there was a second occasion where you committed it. But if you committed it once and then are persecuted or twice put in harm's way by the law, right? Again, unless you're a criminal, I wouldn't worry too much about this, right? But it's basically showing that there are a lot of rights put in place to protect the citizen, to protect the sovereign citizen, right? Citizens large and in charge. It's for the people, of the people, by the people. So we need to protect the people. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, self-incrimination. That's why if you're arrested and the cops start asking questions, zip it. You don't have to say anything. I'm taking the fifth, right? You've heard that. I'm taking the Fifth Amendment. I will not say anything that may incriminate me, right? I'll wait till I get an attorney and talk things out, right? So be careful. I was in Boston and it was a late night, Friday night, I think it was, or Saturday night. And I was returning from a church activity, totally sober, right? Never a criminal in anybody's eyes. And I go pay for my gas, and I come back and there's some cops, flashlights looking in the back seat of the car. I said, unless you have probable cause, unless you have a warrant, I ask you to step away from the vehicle. I sounded like a cop, right? And they looked at me and they're like, oh, this guy must be an attorney or something. So they walked away, right? So know your rights. Even if you're a totally innocent citizen, sometimes you get confronted by the law. So you have to know what's going on, right? Sixth Amendment and all criminal prosecutions, again, so it's criminal. This is your self-protection. So really, 1, 2, and 4 are the ones that are relevant to most of us most of the time. Third Amendment, kind of a moot point, right? Fifth Amendment, that's relevant to us too, somewhat. You don't want to self-incriminate, self-indict. Be careful what you say. You don't have to say anything. If you get arrested, or if there's a cop there or Secret Service agent asking you questions, just dummy up. Don't say anything. Don't offer. That's what I did. I said very little. I said, I don't know. I can't recall. Isn't that what, isn't that what the politicians like Hillary? I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall anything that would put me in jeopardy. That would put my safety or my freedoms in jeopardy. I don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall it. So I did that. I pulled a Hillary. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. Have you ever gone, have you served jury duty? Has to be an impartial jury. On one occasion, and I'm not going to give you the particulars, but I said I may have I mentioned, you get selected and then you have to go into the courtroom and then they interview you, especially if it's a serious case, and this was a criminal case. And I mentioned, you have to put your hand up and you go in the back and talk to the judge and say, I probably have a bias in this case, and I don't think that I would be impartial. And they go, okay, bye-bye, right? It's got to be an impartial jury according to the Sixth Amendment, right? By an impartial jury of the state. And I saw a lot of people, and I don't know if they were telling the truth or not. And I wonder if these people were just trying to get out of jury duty. Judge, they'd raise their hand, go talk to them, and then they're gone. Judge, and most of them would just leave, right? And I guess they're not going to check into it. They want people who are really, committed, who can actually stay there and want to be there, right? Even if you're telling little fibs, I guess they're like, nah, what are we going to do? Research his background, do a background test. Plenty of people there, so they just keep going until they get a full jury. Anyways, by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, all the details, all the specifics. Make sure that all your rights are in place, right? To be confronted with a witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense, right? Let's go through that again. A little slower. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. Public part, I guess. Speedy, I don't know if I guess it depends on the courts. It depends on the courts. Sometimes the courts are really backlogged. It's not speedy. It's not speedy. It's months, if not years, before you find satisfaction or results are given. Right. So, by an impartial jury, said that, of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, right? So that seems like a given, right? Our districts just made up, gerrymandered, rigged, just to, I don't know, catch a criminal or to indict someone. I don't know. That seems like a kind of a given, doesn't it? But maybe it's just giving details, right? Which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, right? So you can't just be arrested and thrown in jail and sent to court. You have to have a lawyer. The case has to be discussed with you. You really have to understand your rights. You have to understand the charges, right? It all has to be done correctly, right? To be confronted with the witness against him. So the witness will be there. To have compulsory means you need to do it. Process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, right? And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So that's pretty thorough. Seventh Amendment, in suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. Now, was that $20 then? $20. What doesn't exceed $20 these days, right? In suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court in the United States than according to the rules of common law. So I don't know common law. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. So if you get, again, this is about understanding if you're arrested, really understanding, and if you feel like might be arrested in the future, maybe you want to study this stuff in more detail, right? But let's go over it again. And suits at the common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20. Again, I don't know. That seems to be a very small amount. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court in the United States than according to the rules of common law, right? So re-examined. So, let's do it once, let's do it right the first time, right? Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted, right? So again, it's a protection of the individual so that they're not abused financially or abused physically or abused in regards to excessive time in prison, right? But mistakes are made by the courts, and the courts, the innocent have been arrested and have been in jail, prison for months, if not years, sometimes decades. And the system is slow. So talking about a speedy trial or getting speedy results, speedy satisfaction. Some cases, you probably heard about this, where somebody was in prison 10, 20, 30 years, and they're finally released, and they were found it was found that they were not guilty. Some evidence has come forth that's a much later date, obviously, right? So nothing is perfect, nothing goes perfectly, but nevertheless, these amendments are to the greatest degree to protect the average American citizen. Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Right? Point of note about this one. This was put in here because there was some concern that certain rights that were not in the Constitution at the time might in the future be of concern, right? Certain rights might be overlooked. But according to my research here, it says, the Ninth Amendment has rarely played any role in the U.S. constitutional law, and until the 1980s was even considered forgotten or irrelevant by many legal academics, right? So it was basically put there as a contingency. We may not have covered everything, covered all rights, and if there are certain rights in the future that need to be mentioned or need to be considered, then we're saying here in the Ninth Amendment, please consider them. Even though they're not here, please consider them, right? It was kind of an out for any rights that may have been left out that would appear at some time in the future. But according to the research I've done, it rarely has played a role until the 1980s. And I don't know specifically what they were referring to. It was often considered forgotten or irrelevant by many legal academics. And here's the 10th Amendment. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, right? So again, it goes to the states. Power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, right? And the power of the people is in the states, so it would go to the states. And here's the various Bill of Rights, if you could read those, right? Here's the Magna Carta, 1215, England, Bill of Rights, early state constitutions, Virginia Declaration of Rights. Here's your Constitutional Convention, May to September 1787. Ratification debates, James Wilson, there he is. Ratification debates, the Federalist Papers, and we went over those considerably. That's Madison and Hamilton. All right, they don't have John Jay. Again, maybe they're dissing John Jay. But he was involved, even though he's not. Pictured there, George Mason, James Madison, Bill of Rights, major pensman of the Constitution. Reconstruction was about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, right? And we'll be going over subsequent amendments 11 through 27 in the future, so I'm not going to be going over these now. John Bingham. Here's some hypothetical questions. That's it for now. We'll get into the other amendments, 11 through 27, in a little bit. So for now, that's it. Have a good day and take care.